What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Wednesday, October 15th. This month is flying by, y'all. I didn't do an episode yesterday. I took the time to kind of catch up on some sleep I've been missing, and it was great. Raring to go today. We're going to go over my thoughts on Donna Adelson's sentencing. And for those of you that are newer to the channel, in the past, I have done some episodes in a series called Jail to Prison, which is what inmates can expect when they are making that switch from county jail to the big house. I have a contact who I've known since childhood who is a lifer in California, so clearly very different states with different circumstances. But what we're going to cover today about her experiences in the over 10 years she has been incarcerated in prison and what she's seen is pretty universal. So just starting out with sentencing, y'all, there's just no words. I'm not sure between dumpster fire and hot mess express which phrase adequately describes Donna Adelson's sentencing. Maybe a bit of both, but I've never seen anything like it in my life. And just a reminder, Donna is the fifth person to be sentenced for the murder of Dan Markel, and as expected, she was sentenced to life without parole. The defense did ask for a downward departure on the lower counts. Those lower counts were conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation to commit murder. What is a downward departure? Judge Everett had the discretion to sentence Donna to a term of imprisonment below the range that's recommended by the state sentencing guidelines, and they based that on specific mitigating circumstances. This is often considered when the defendant has a minimal criminal history or minimal participation in the criminal conduct. But Judge Everett was like, nope, not going to do it. So she was sentenced to 30 years on counts 2 and 3. The first person that spoke was Dr. Graber. He's a former congressman. He's an OBGYN, and he loves to toot his own horn because the first 5 minutes of his statement was just self-serving, rambling, telling everything that he's accomplished in his life. But a couple of little key pieces of things he said. I believe she's innocent of these 3 counts, and we believe her. Good for you, Dr. Graber, but a jury did not believe her. He also said that Charlie exploited his mother. Another friend took the podium and said that he and his wife are still in shock of Donna's current circumstances and that Donna did not receive a fair trial in Tallahassee. He said had the trial been held elsewhere, she would have been found not guilty. There were a couple of letters read from friends of Donna's that were more in tune with what should be read at a sentencing hearing. And then Harvey got up to the podium. He accused Judge Everett and the jury of being biased. He accused the Markels of lying about not being able to see their grandsons. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, my blood pressure shot up when I heard him say that because we all know after Dan's murder, Wendy denied Dan's parents access to these kids and even changed the kids' last names. They did not go to the funeral. And later on, the Markels successfully had the Markel Act passed in the Florida Senate in 2022. That was to expand grandparent visitation rights, and that passed by a vote of 112 to 3. This legislation allows grandparents to petition for court-ordered visitation if the other parent has been found guilty of wrongful death or is the victim of a homicide. So, sir, please sit down and stop lying. But back to his little blow-up. He said Donna's done nothing wrong. He said he sat in the courtroom and screamed in his mind, and he also screamed at the podium, as he listened to the state witnesses who told outright lies. At one point, Judge Everett did stop Harvey, asking if he's trying to re-argue the trial. He reminded Harvey this has nothing to do with the character of Donna. There was a brief little break there where Harvey regrouped with her attorney, and he finished up quickly by saying the judge is sending an innocent woman to prison. And he ended by saying, you've taken my wife and you've taken my life as well. This is not justice. This is vengeance and it's wrong. Okay, Harvey. Donna spoke as well. And first off, she tried to whip up some tears talking about Dan and how wonderful he was, but not a single one fell that I could see. She talked about his murder, saying he was being hunted, and she can't imagine the fear he had seeing a gun pointed at him, and points out when he dropped the kids off at daycare, he had no idea that would be the last time he would see his children. The children had no idea that would be the last time they saw their dad. And when he went to the gym, he had no idea that would be the last time he would ever exercise. She said she couldn't conceive of Dan's heroic efforts to stay alive after the shooting, and she said her heart was broken when Dan died. Then she kind of took a play from Harvey's handbook, blaming everybody but herself, blamed the trial being held in Tallahassee. She said the state switched who they say was the mastermind from trial to trial. She also said if she had knowledge of the plot to kill Dan, she would have stopped it. She goes on to ask where was the evidence of her involvement before the murder. Again, Judge Everett's like, stop. Are you trying to re-argue the trial? And he also reminds Donna the court can take into consideration her lack of remorse in her statement. Donna said it makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when Sergeant Corbett was on the stand saying he could not place her phone at Charlie's house. And then she said she was never outside of Charlie's house. Ironically, she did not bring up the text to Charlie that they were outside of his house. But let's move on. She said that the jury bought into the story that she dropped off money hook, line, and sinker. She mentioned something about a juror saying they knew what a witness would testify to, and this was said during jury selection. Donna asked, how was this person allowed on the jury? Again, Judge Everett stopped her and said that she could take this up on the appellate level. But this has nothing to do with the allocution. At this point, Harvey's phone starts ringing, and the judge is like, turn that phone off or you can leave. He was over it, done, trying to find his inner zen at that point, I think. Donna says there were two crimes, Dan being murdered and the taking of her life, the life of an innocent woman. She said Dan would be appalled at the lack of justice in her case and would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. And then she swears up and down she's innocent, as if the judge was going to say, yeah, you know what, Donna, you're right, go home. And how gross for her to even throw what she thinks Dan would think about her trial in there. Ugh. It was quite the show, y'all, if you haven't watched. I do have that up on YouTube. I have Donna and Harvey's statements separately, so you don't have to watch the whole sentencing if you don't want to. Prosecutor Kappelman asked Donna to pay restitution for the cost of her prosecution. The estimate for that is more than $723,000. The defense is asking for supporting documentation for that amount. Once they do set a number for restitution, once Donna's in prison and starts having money put on her books or for phone calls, they could take a percentage of each deposit to start paying that restitution back. Georgia Kappelman took a break from a grand jury meeting at the Leon County Courthouse just yesterday to talk to the Tallahassee Democrat about the sentencing. Her thoughts was she thought it was unusual. I heard it referred to as a goat rope, which is a pretty good description. Now, a goat rope, that is an expression that refers to a chaotic, confusing, or disorganized situation, oftentimes with too many people involved, and the name comes from when people would try to rope goats at fairs. Kappelman went on to say, I thought she was helping me, and I appreciate that. But she's not doing herself any favors if she thinks she's going to get her life sentence reversed and is lobbying the court to give her a lesser sentence on counts 2 and 3. She didn't do herself any favors by shooting arrows all over the courtroom, including to the judge. Prosecutor Kappelman and State Attorney Jack Campbell would not comment on the grand jury, which started yesterday. They didn't say what cases the grand jury might be considering, and Prosecutor Kappelman also said she could not answer questions regarding Wendy Adelson, but we'll definitely be watching this space. Not gonna lie, I've got like 50 alerts set up on my phone. And in my opinion, I think if it's going to happen sooner than later. We are over 11 years into this case, and the prosecutor has been very methodical in how she has arrested people and taken them to trial. So I think if it's going to happen, hopefully soon. Now, Donna has requested to be as close to Miami as possible. There are concerns that if she is placed at the same facility as Katie Magbanawah, they would definitely need to be kept separate, but the defense also says that it doesn't necessarily mean that people who are familiar or friendly with Katie would not be around, and they do have concerns about that. Now, Donna was released from the Leon County Jail at 5:48 a.m. yesterday, October 14th. She's currently at the Florida Women's Reception Center. You know, for me, I said this yesterday in a YouTube short, but it's kind of like the Florida Welcome Center. You know, if you're driving there and you cross the state line, you go in, get some delicious OJ, continue on your way. It's kind of like that, except this is for prison. And instead of orange juice, you might get like a spork and a plastic cup and a really thin mattress. This facility has the capacity for 1,235 inmates. It's very likely she could be here for a few weeks before being moved to her final destination. She did request a facility close to Miami so it would be easier for Harvey to visit, and the judge had no problem with that recommendation, but in the end, it will be up to the Department of Corrections to decide where she is placed. So I have the inmate orientation handbook for the reception center. Later on, when she is permanently placed, we will get that handbook and go over the specific rules of that facility. It says this handbook is to help you understand the general rules, procedures, requirements, and routines of the reception center and your permanent institution. So this is a combination of the reception center and prison. Over the next few days, you will receive both written and verbal information that will be very important to you during your incarceration. The following is a list of several events that will take place on your first day as you're being processed through the transfer and receiving section. There is a verification of commitment information, inventory of personal property, your money deposited into the inmate bank in your name, the issuance of a Department of Corrections ID number, a brief medical exam, a haircut and personal grooming, a shower and issue of state clothing, electronic fingerprints taken. You will have a state photo identification issued, and there will be an orientation on day-to-day living and working activities. Donna's not allowed visitors until she reaches the permanent facility she will spend the rest of her life at. Visits are typically scheduled for Saturdays and Sundays in prison. She will be given written and verbal instructions on the discipline, the grievance policies, and protection procedures. She will also get a number of exams, including physical, psychological, a spectrum exam, educational, and substance abuse screening. She'll be interviewed to gather information about her background, her education, her employment, criminal history, and then other information. Donna will complete this spectrum assessment, which asks her questions such as her thoughts, her feelings, and the dynamics of her relationships. They do encourage the inmate to answer honestly to best help design a plan specific for her. She would be given outer clothing, underwear, socks, and shoes. Her clothing can be exchanged twice a week. Upon arrival, she would have been assigned a specific housing area. She's required to keep that area clean, including her bunk, the floor, the wall, or foot lockers. She cannot have any perishable items, so I'm not sure what happens to her commissary that was perishable that she brought. She can create a list of telephone numbers and can make collect calls. They do not have the tablets here at this transition facility. For personal hygiene, her hair has to be groomed and she cannot alter her appearance by changing her hair color. And general population inmates shower once a day. Now, if Donna's in restricted housing, she would be allowed to shower 3 times a week. Just like in jail, when in prison, if she needs to be seen by a nurse, she will fill out a sick call form. There is a copay to be seen. Once in prison, she'll have access to a law library, and she can take academic courses, and if approved, she could also tutor other inmates. For personal property, she can have publications that are on the approved reading list. Now, years ago, I did a series called Jail to Prison, or Life as a Lifer. And since we have a lot of new listeners and it's been a while since I've done this, I pulled some of the old information and also talked to my contact just recently about what Donna can expect when she does make that move from the intake facility to prison. I explained Donna's case and situation to her and asked her opinion of how she might be received in prison because she has seen this for over 10 years. She said that Donna's age and her wealth will make her very vulnerable. Some will get her to let her guard down, and then they'll try to get money from her. If Donna is smart, she can use her money to build a comfortable life in prison. She just has to watch out for predators. She said, for example, a new elderly lady at her facility was taken for nearly $1,000 before she realized she was in no position to make anybody honor their agreements. If you loan people money or try to buy a package in someone's name for an agreed amount, it makes you vulnerable. There is nothing beyond the honor system for them to repay you or give you items that you bought. Most people have additional vulnerability to prison hustle. Donna will learn who to trust and who not to trust. She probably won't need to hustle for money, since I'm sure Harvey will fund her life behind bars, so that will help her in some ways. And since she is used to comfortable living, it is possible she could seek out people to do her laundry, get extra boxes for commissary, canteen, extra food from the mess hall, and other tasks that she doesn't want to do. These people may charge her more than the standard going rate, and they also might steal her clothes and her commissary. She doesn't think Donna will be a very high risk of physical harm because Donna's not going to be a fighter. She did say, interestingly enough, with Charlie being a co-conspirator who's been convicted, fellow prisoners may send Charlie fan mail. She has seen that there at her prison with high-profile inmates. She says what you've seen on TV shows and documentaries about prison life is really sensationalized and it's not really reality. She said for documentaries with real inmates, they always put on an act for the camera. The only way to really know how it is on the inside is to live it. She said when you leave county jail for prison, you have no idea how to play the game once you get to prison. While awaiting your transfer to prison, you can only replay regrets and build your fear of what is to come. And in her case, she had a cellmate who had been incarcerated in prison who tried her best to prepare my contact for prison. She said it was helpful in some respects, but the reality is there's just no preparing yourself. In jail, you do have some hope while you're awaiting trial. In the back of your mind, you think you're going to be acquitted, and then you're going to leave jail and just rejoin the world. And we all know that's probably what Donna was thinking. But after conviction and sentencing, a kind of numbness sets in. And she said this has been true for most of the women I've lived with and spoken with. You just want to get the transfer over. The hours on the transport bus is surreal, and the fear and the numbness take turns being in control. For her, there were metal shackles on her waist and ankles for the duration of the ride. Once the bus opens the doors, your shackles come off and you are placed in a group holding cell. You are strip searched all together in one room. People are also questioning each other about their cases, how much time they have, gang affiliations. You can't bring anything with you except the clothes on your back, if you have prescription eyeglasses, and a list of medications that you take that are prescribed by a doctor. Again, just a reminder, this is specific to California, but from everything I've read, very general in terms of prisons all over the country. You're given a lice wash, and she said that smell lingers for days. Intake is to the point with staff asking point blank, if you die, who do we call? After processing, you're given a bedroll, and then you're sent to your building and your cell. For the most part, the first few days and weeks can be at a temporary building with other new intakes as processing continues. She says the minute that you walk inside the prison, everybody stares and they're trying to size you up. You feel like you are on display. She said prison is scary, humiliating, and very humbling. You are not in control of a single element of your life except your private thoughts. One inmate described going to prison as being in a hostile country and you don't know anything about the language or the customs. She said newbies almost always make two mistakes: asking someone what they're in for and how long they have on their sentence. She says those first few days and weeks in prison, your body releases a lot of stress hormones and adrenaline on a constant basis, which can cause all kinds of mental health issues. She went through that herself, and now, as these new arrivals come into her facility, she sees them constantly on edge, jumping in fear with every loud noise or anytime an argument breaks out. The adrenaline is just your body's natural way to prepare you for fight or flight. She said she has seen fights break out with new arrivals that never would have happened if those defense hormones coupled with stress were not at play. You have zero privacy. None. You use the toilet, you shower, somebody is always nearby. Y'all, I would explode. Wouldn't be able to do it. She said on average, it takes new inmates who have never been in prison a couple of years to really start to feel comfortable. First-timers frequently fall into a very consuming depression. The first few months in prison is a jolt to every sense you have. And jail just does not prepare you for prison. It is two completely different worlds. Prison overload is something that first-timers frequently experience, which is the overwhelming feeling of helplessness or lack of control of any area of your own life. The rules, the people, the overcrowded conditions, the heat, the substandard food, the pettiness of other inmates. the drunk idiots that are raising a ruckus, grown adults acting like immature children. People are cold, and the environment itself. The days seem endless and the nights even more endless. There is a consuming loneliness. There is a smell that is very unique to prison, the sounds, and the fact that it feels like it's never going to end. She says sometimes it's so chaotic in prison from sunup to sundown, it fills the air so bad you feel like you can taste it. And prison is constantly loud. You never have pure quiet. In jail, it can be quieter at times. Prison, not so much, and that adjustment can drive you crazy. They don't have earplugs in prison. Her go-to is to wet some toilet paper and shove it as far down in her ears as she can to try and drown out all the noise. She said the homesickness is consuming. You can't prepare for it and you can't avoid it. She said she has seen most people lose their religion as opposed to gaining it. If you come in with a chip on your shoulder or you act high and mighty, you're going to be a target. Inmates will do things very early on into your sentence to deflate every bit of that. At my contacts facility, the first month in, you do not get commissary yet. You only get what is issued to you when you arrive. You do not have a tablet, no TV, no radio, no clock. Could be very different for Donna in Florida, but you guys get the point. She said prison is full of manipulators, and they are going to prey on the vulnerable, perhaps a 70-something-year-old grandmother. A lot of people enter prison thinking they have the advantage if they were good at something on the outside, but on the inside, you are likely to be so inexperienced and terrible at manipulating other inmates because some of these inmates have been in since they were juveniles, in and out their whole life. When you come in with an attitude, the older inmates will strip you bare on that level. You have to earn respect in prison. And nobody cares how powerful or successful you were on the outside. In prison, you are in there with severely mentally ill inmates, homeless inmates, blue collar, and inmates who are super wealthy on the outside. If you let it be known you come from money, you are targeted for many reasons, especially favors in the form of having your family on the outside put money on books for inmates. Speaking of being in debt to someone, the new arrivals are often desperate to find a group to hang with quickly. Those are the ones that get preyed upon. The smallest acts by other inmates may seem kind, but they often come with a price to pay in return for that favor. It could be as simple as doing their laundry or as big as assaulting someone or being a drug mule. The person who loaned whatever it is will be the one giving the terms for repayment. She's seen physical violence or doubling up on what you owe. People get very jealous if your case made you known far and wide. Brace yourself, Donna Sue. Breaking that persona is one of the first things to happen to new, more infamous inmates. However, some high-profile inmates will find a group that offers them physical protection, but the verbal and emotional abuse never stops causing the inmate to constantly expect something to happen to them. There's always going to be people that are jealous your case was far and wide. Prison seems like you're trapped in the drama of high school, but you don't get to go home at the end of the day. She said a lot of new arrivals initially lose weight, but once you're more comfortable, that weight gain is almost a given in prison. We know the food available in the commissary isn't healthy, and we have seen that weight gain with Donna tends to be worse if you stay in your cell and don't exercise much at all. And just because you're guaranteed so much time out of your cell every day doesn't mean it's going to happen. If there is a staff shortage, you could be on lockdown for days or even weeks. When you're in a cell with several women, you can't move. Every move is almost coordinated when everyone is awake and on lockdown. When somebody on your block is having a mental health episode, it can keep everybody up all night long. There is no white noise you can turn on to drown it out. And newer inmates tend to struggle to adapt to these situations on top of it being absolutely frightening for them. If somebody gets unruly and needs to be pepper sprayed on the unit, you are likely to get a whiff of it and you're going to feel it. At her facility, when there is a fight in the cell block common area, everybody gets on the ground until the nurse comes to check for injuries on the ones that were fighting. Sometimes this can take 30 minutes or more for a nurse to even get up there. She said friendships risk financial, emotional, physical, psychological, and freedom dates, which doesn't apply to Donna because she's never going to be free. But she says, yet human nature compels us to make friends even in prison. But those prison friendships are mostly convenient because you're forced to live together. You're hanging out with people you would have never hung out with on the outside, but on the inside, you're thick as thieves because you have no choice, and it's mostly based in survival. Prison friends fulfill the needs of the moment. You are part of the game, even if you don't want to play. She's found most inmates do not lose sleep over their crimes, but they see themselves as the victim due to their incarceration, and that is what makes them lose the most sleep. She said, unlike on TV, it's not a daily fight for survival from other inmates. It's a daily fight with the boredom, the homesickness, knowing everything you're missing, knowing that people will pass away and you will never see them again, and a million other self-inflicted things you think about from sunup to sundown. But the potential for violence is very, very real, and that adds a constant layer of stress. She says prison is like a de-evolution. You slowly shed the outside and things get more primitive inside. In prison, you battle the people inside you, the individual, and then the prisoner. Some days, all you can do is just be human. She has seen people in for a couple of years who just slowly descend into madness and change personalities. And by the time they've been there for a while, they are completely unrecognizable from the person they came in as. She said their bunks are hard with thin vinyl mattresses, and a lot of inmates have physical pain on a daily basis due to this. I asked her if she has seen somebody in their late 70s come in and thrive and do great, and she says not really. It depends on if they are people who were frequent flyers or people who have been in and out of the system their whole life. Her opinion of just seeing people like Donna Adelson come into prison very late in life for the first time is that they do not thrive. A lot of times they give up, start getting plagued with health issues, and struggle just on a daily basis. And you know what? That's what happens when you have a man murdered for just wanting to be a dad and you wanting those kids down in South Florida for your own selfish reasons. So I have a lot more of this jail to prison. I've got 4 new emails from my contact going a little more in depth. So I'm going to go through those. We watched her sentencing and we know she's headed to prison, but there is a whole new reality awaiting Donna Sue Adelson that I'm not sure Donna realizes what she's in for just yet. But that is it for now. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.